Hi, well, I am here to talk about poetry. I am an accidental poet, and what I mean by that is I discovered poetry around the time of the lockdowns during COVID. And it ended up being in a really organic fashion in the sense that I already have a habit or a practice of writing every day and stream of consciousness writing, which is a habit that I uh, acquired after going through The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, who focuses on morning pages. Now, I started writing them as morning pages quite religiously and then have since evolved to doing just stream of consciousness writing, so it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning. And what I discovered during the periods when we were in lockdown and I was isolated, in fact, by myself, is that a lot of the writing that was coming out of me was quite lyrical. And at the time, I didn't necessarily understand that I was writing poetry until I would go back and reread what I'd written and then recognize that a lot of it was able to come together when I put it into stanzas. And in a way, that's why I think of myself as an accidental poet. And after I did that, I went back to look at poetry in a different way. So prior to that period, to me, poetry had always been something inaccessible in the sense that I would think it was something that I couldn't do. I admired it. I admired the people who write poetry. I loved reading poetry, but it just was something that I didn't think was in me. I have done a lot of writing, nonfiction and fiction. And at that point, I consider myself a novelist, but not a poet. And so what I'm going to do in the next few sessions is talk a little bit more about poetry, but I first wanted to, at this stage, share how I became a poet. And the beauty of the experience that I had was that once I opened up myself to writing poetry and recognized that what I was doing was poetry, is that it just started flowing. And over a period of a year, I wrote over 300 poems, and I honored that call. Whenever I felt that I had a poem come through, I would just write it down, and it went from writing as part of the stream of consciousness to writing it on pieces of paper, scraps pieces of paper, sometimes on my phone if that's all I had on me, on coasters if I was at a restaurant or somewhere else. And yeah, I just ended up accumulating quite a lot of poems that eventually turned into a collection of poetry called the Soul Seeker Collection, which are 3 books: Embody, Embrace, and Embolden. And within the 3 books, there are nearly 300 poems. I didn't publish every single poem that I wrote, but I did sort of honor the journey, and that collection of poetry, The Soul Seeker, is a reflection of that journey. Embody being sort of a lot of the personal journey that I went through. Embrace was accepting where I was in life, but also accepting that I was a poet, and Embolden, how I found myself moving forward, honoring that connection. So yes, that's a little bit about me and how I became an accidental poet.